You know, we've all been there, right? You get handed some chaotic request and told to go build something amazing. It doesn't matter if it's a new product or, in this case, a language course, the challenge is always the same. So how do you take this mess, this undefined problem, and turn it into a clear, elegant solution? Well, the answer isn't some kind of magic. It's all about design.
Okay, so picture this. This file just lands on your desk. You're being asked to build an entire academic program, an intensive one, for 45 students from Central America. You've got 5 months to get the whole shebang ready. Housing, curriculum, everything. But here's the kicker, a huge catch. You have zero data on their English proficiency. I mean nothing. No test scores, no writing samples, zip. So seriously, where would you even start?
Well, this wasn't just a hypothetical. This was the exact high-stakes problem facing a real coordinator named Doug. He had just 4 weeks. 4 weeks! To whip up an academic English course to get these students ready for American universities and the big TOEFL exam. The big problem? A giant, gaping hole right where all the student data should.
I mean, just jumping in and grabbing textbooks or scribbling down lesson plans, that would be a total disaster. It's literally like trying to teach blindfolded. Without a real systematic process, you're not designing, you're just guessing. And with stakes this high, guessing just isn't an option.
So how do you take that blindfold off? What's the first step out of the dark? Well, the most crucial principle in any design process is pretty simple. Listen before you build. You've got to analyze the situation, and you really have to understand the people you're building this for. That's the only way to create something that actually, works.
Okay, so in the world of course design, this has a fancy name, a needs analysis. But honestly, let's forget the jargon for a second. It's really simple. It's all about finding the gap. You're just figuring out the space between where someone is right now and where they need to end up. And your job as the designer is to build the bridge that gets them across. And this is a perfect illustration of that gap for Doug's students. Check it out. On one side, you've got a total mystery. We have no clue what their English level is. And on the other side, a super clear, super high-stakes goal. Be ready for a U.S. university. Wow, that is a huge gap to close in only 4 weeks.
Okay, so to really get our heads around that gap, we need to break it down into 2 kinds of needs. First up, you have the objective needs. Think of these as the hard facts, the data, the test scores, the stuff they absolutely must be able to do. But then you have these subjective needs. And these are more about the human side of things. What do the students want to do? What are they hoping to get out of this? And here's a perfect example of where those two can clash, right? Objectively, to ace that TOEFL exam, a student needs to get their head around complex grammar, like the passive voice. But that same student, subjectively, they might feel like, hey, what's really important to me is being able to order a coffee without panicking, or just chat with people on the street. A great designer, their job is to find a way to balance both of those things.
So you're juggling objective needs, subjective needs, it's a lot. How do you manage it all? You need a map. And I'm not talking about some crazy, complicated academic chart. I mean a simple but really powerful framework. Something to guide you from that initial chaos all the way to a clear, working solution.
And here it is, this is the map. You can pretty much boil down any professional design model to these 3 core steps. First, you plan. You figure out the needs, you set clear goals. Second, you act. You build the thing, you put your plan into motion. And third, and this might be the most important part of all, you revise. You assess how it's going, you get feedback, and you make it better.
But wait, there's one more thing. A crucial reality check you have to do before you jump into action. Let's call them real-world constraints. I mean, you can have this brilliant plan for one-on-one tutoring for every single student, right? But if the budget says no way, or there's just no time, well, that brilliant plan is totally useless. Every great idea has to pass the "is this actually possible" test.
Okay, so let's circle back to Doug and his big problem. Let's see what happens when we apply this map. Armed with this simple plan, act, revise framework, that totally chaotic request suddenly starts to look, well, manageable. All of a sudden, we have a clear path forward.
So what about that huge data gap? How do they solve it? Well, using the framework, the answer becomes pretty obvious. First thing they do, send out a questionnaire. This gets them some of that initial subjective data. What do the students think they need? Next, they build the first week to be super flexible, something that can change on the fly. And then, the masterstroke. Day 1, everyone takes a diagnostic test. Boom! That gives them the hard, objective data they need to really tailor the rest of the course.
And this right here brings us to maybe the most important idea of this whole thing. It's not a straight line. You don't just plan, then act, then you're done. No, it's a loop. The best design is never really finished. It's this ongoing cycle of checking in, getting feedback, and making things better.
And you can see that loop playing out perfectly right here on this timeline. So day 1, they get that diagnostic test data. At the end of week 1, they assess. They look at the results and go, you know what? This TOEFL prep is actually way too easy for this group. So what do? In week 2, they revise the plan. They crank up the difficulty. See? This is a responsive cycle. It makes sure the course fits the students' actual needs, not just what you guessed they needed 4 weeks ago.
So look, if you take away just one thing from all of this, let it be this. Great design, I don't care if it's a course, a product, or a company. It's never a static one-and-done deal. It's a dynamic, living, breathing cycle. You're always planning, acting, and most importantly, revising based on what's actually happening in the real world.
And think about it. This powerful plan, act, revise loop isn't just for classrooms. Not at all. You could use this for learning a new instrument, for managing a project at work, even for something like getting in shape. So I'll leave you with this question. Where in your life or your work could this simple mindset take a bit of chaos and turn it into some real clarity?